the Fed has been reporting quarterly losses. Okay, you can go to Seeking Alpha. Thank you, Trey, again. And they're reporting quarterly losses. They just recorded the biggest quarterly loss of $30.8 billion. Okay, so they're like $102 billion in losses.
Get ready for a new episode of KP Talks Dollars and Cents. Learn financial literacy and get real-time updates on all things housing, finance, and real estate. So let's get started. Here's your host, Kevin Perenio.
Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Palm Desert. We are here. Happy Thanksgiving. I hope you and your family had a great one. I'm going to try and cut a video. This is more of just a fun one, little housing update with some of the fix and flips that I did. My family is here. My kids are roaming around. I'm here with my buddy Jason and Britt, the ones that we've been doing this fix and flips with. They have a condo out in Rancho Mirage, and we're out visiting with them. And anyway, just hanging out, but I thought I'd get an update out. I know I didn't get one Thursday or Friday. It's Saturday. So we are looking at two different construction projects here in Palm Desert. So we're just like a couple blocks off of El Paseo, which is kind of like the main drag through Palm Desert. And this street right here backs up to these mountains over here. La Quinta's that way. This is not a property I'm involved with, but I'm on another one, which I'm going to try and pause my video and get some footage of that. But check out the windows and doors here. Nice little deep pool. There we are, hanging. This is Aria, Kayla. Oh, let's go. There we go. Wifey. You are, buddy? You are? There you go. That's Serafina. All right. Existing home sales were down. Might have hit the trough on existing home sales. We're going to find out. Remember, typically, let's just say like there's 4 million existing home sales and, maybe under 1 million new homes built and sold in a year, annualized. 5 million units a year, let's just say that's about what it normally is. But with higher rates, we saw existing home sales stay kind of low, especially with, all these borrowers who are locked into historically low rates. Something like 80% of all borrowers are under 5% that have a mortgage. And not to mention, there's a lot of people, obviously, that have equity that own their homes free and clear. There's obviously a convergence of like people don't want to pay a higher price and a higher rate. But if we think rates peaked, if we think rates are starting to come down and now we're on recession watch or slower growth watch or Fed cutting the rates watch next year, we're going to see existing home sales come up. And I'll give you some nuggets here. As time goes on, even borrowers with a 2%, 3% rate are gaining equity. And if they want a bigger home because of all the, the 7 Ds, deployment, diamonds, diapers, debt, divorce, downsizing, death, that stuff never changes. And so, yeah, you would still sell your 2 or 3 or 4% rate if you got so much equity that just kept gaining and gaining over time to trade it for that next house that you want for whatever reason. You trade that equity in, it's like more of a down payment. So even a higher rate, maybe the payment's the same, even a higher rate and higher price. So purchase business has been pretty strong, and it's supposed to be strong again next year. My monkeys here, look at 2 little monkeys. Coming in. What are you guys doing here? You gonna go skating? Myself? Maybe a couple. Maybe if I'm lucky, a couple thousand people on a weekend on LinkedIn. Anyway, so by the way, speaking of developing land, Exxon bought 120,000 acres of lithium-rich soil in Arkansas. And they think that by 2030, they'll be able to produce enough lithium for 1 million electric vehicles a year. So it's actually a sign. So like when economies like ours go into recession and we start to have slower growth, government spending kicks in and ends up helping spur the economy. And the CHIPS Act is a great example of that. You see with semiconductor investment like Texas Instruments, putting a humongous plant up in my former hometown in Sherman, Texas, on the border of Texas and Oklahoma. Shout out to Chris Griffith out there. And so, this electric vehicle regulation that basically said, hey, we'll give subsidies for EVs if you buy, a certain amount of your parts and components from America. Well, if Exxon's going to be mining lithium here locally in America, in Arkansas, that will be part of that, to be able to get, more than half of your car made from American parts and sources and elements. My kids, you got to see this. This is crazy. I mean, I used to skateboard when I was little, and if they only knew, like, how awesome this pool would be if you were a skater. This is like the most California thing to say, by the way, and I'm a Texan. So jobs data's coming out next week. We have personal consumption expenditure. Those are all like inflation and data, pieces that we're watching. Remember, two of the three mandates by the Fed is full employment. So jobs data is important, obviously, and price stability. So the personal consumption expenditure, which is the Fed's favorite inflation gauge, will be out next week. Here comes, this 8-year-old, Aria, out of breath, and she wants to be on camera. Say hi.
I do.
To LinkedIn.
What?
Say hi.
Hi.
All right. Anyway, so in the jobs data that's been released here recently, there are, the PMI, the S&P Global puts out like this PMI services data, right? So services, job services were declining, and that was the first time since like 3 years, since 2020. And obviously, non-housing services has been the biggest component of our inflation. And to see jobs in the service industry start to slow in some of this data that's out there, that's a big thing. So let me pause here, and I'll get you an update on our house in Palm Desert down the street. By the way, we did sell our house in Culver City, the first one, for $4.85 million. Didn't make the money we wanted to on it, unfortunately, because of whatever reasons, labor, costs, supply chain, blah, 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 overruns, rain, this, that, and the other. But we did set the record for the highest property sold in Culver City at $4.85 million. We have 2 more properties there. We have a 4-plex, so we're turning into a 6-plex that we're probably going to rent and hold. And then another one down the street we're going to try and sell. So lots of fun out there. All right, let me pause. Hopefully my camera doesn't die. And then I'll get you an update on our Palm Desert house down the street. Just dropped the kids off at Consuela's Cafe.
We got live music going.
I just gave our audience the Big Lebowski reference. All right, hope you enjoyed that interlude. We are at Abronia Trail. You can look that up in Palm Desert. Forgot the address. We've faced a couple challenges on this one, but we are mostly done with electrical, about a third done with plumbing. We had a GC steal $75,000 worth of shit from us. Anyway. So this is the front yard over here, and we're going to put a pool over there. There's a nice palm tree, which we like. That's the family wagon, the mommy mobile, because I love driving it too. This is like our great room here, and TV mounted in there, or fireplace. That's a fireplace? Oh, it's a TV. Yeah. Here's the fireplace. Right over here. It's like one of the... Oh, there's 2? There's one here. Yeah?
One back.
Oh, so it is a fireplace. Okay. It's a good first guess. So we used to have a guy sleeping right here in this room. And before we insulated the place with windows to make sure stuff wasn't stolen, but he was part of this crew that stole from us. So, oh well. We actually are talking about maybe even just converting this into a rental because of that. So, I'll just get the economics real quick. We bought this thing for $430K. We're supposed to put about $350K into it, and then try and sell it for $1 million, kind of a quick hitter. So not like a huge cash outlay, But, when you lose $75K of profit because of hiring the wrong person and having a thief, maybe you just kind of pivot. So we'll see. Here's the pool and the palm tree. Hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving weekend. For those of you in Michigan, you guys won. I'm sorry, Ohio State. Not hating. Texas is the best one-team win. And we get in there. Let's go. Cheers. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. It is technically Tuesday after midnight, 12:23 a.m. West Coast time. It is Tuesday morning, and we have a lot of news coming out this week, and I apologize for looking down at my notes, but I read a bunch of articles over the weekend, a long, happy Thanksgiving weekend. Hopefully you all had a great time with family and connecting. I know it's not always a happy time for everyone, so if it wasn't, and it was tough, you got through it. And there's one step at a time, and there's a couple more holidays coming up, and you can do it. Reach out, call me, message me. We're all here for you. This is our LinkedIn community. We're going to help each other out no matter what we're all facing this time of year. Okay, so what is going on in the world of housing? This is my roller coaster report, okay? This is the roller coaster, not a loop-de-loop, so we start at one spot and end up right where we started. We're going up and down. I'm going to give a little bit of something for everybody. You want to talk about uncertainty, and I'm not trying to spread fear and doubt. Just talk about uncertainty. There's a lot of things that are uncertain. Remember, when I said a couple videos ago that the soft landing is over, so now it's how hard does the landing get from here? Now, it may remain soft. It may get, less soft. It may be a little rocky. We may be in a full-blown recession next year. We may be in one right now. I don't know. I'm going to give a little bit of something for everybody. So, before I do that, by the way, the FHA MIP fund is still very well capitalized, and they're doing well. There was, this annual report that they put out. Remember, there's an MIP cut. And the fund's still doing great. After all these government loans, these FHA loans have been done with less upfront MIP and monthly MIP, the fund is still in great shape. Now, I know that if we do go into a recession, there could potentially be defaults on loans, but we think we're well capitalized. We're like at 10.5% of down from 11.11% a year ago. So there's still plenty of funds in the insurance fund. So the MBA had a statement, the Mortgage Bankers Association. They had a statement on the FHA's annual report to Congress, and they're saying, "Hey, let's eliminate the life of loan premium requirement. Why do we need that? Especially now with higher rates, most of these loans are going to refi out later on, right? With a lower rate. Maybe there's some talk of helping with affordability by getting the rates down. They did a great job at HUD by doing the cut the first time. On the margin, that helps with affordability. Let's make homes more affordable. They ain't getting cheaper. Trust me. So thank you, HUD. Hopefully we can work together and get something done there. The VA has said to servicers of veterans that there's about 40 to 50,000 veterans that are kind of in this limbo foreclosure process. Maybe there were some servicing errors, maybe not really sure. So many servicers are halting their foreclosure proceedings through May, or the steps to get down that path for veterans to take a look at all these loans and see if there's something can be done. And some of the CARES Act benefits, like moratoriums on foreclosure, that kind of stuff, allowing non-payment for maybe another 6 months. All those things are being enacted, so I thought that was good that we're trying to take care of our vets here, especially during the holidays. They've done a lot for our country, and I know it's tough for some of our veterans out there. Okay, so we know existing home sales kind of came down a little bit, and so did new home sales. But you know what happened before these reports? Rates went up to like the highest rates I've ever seen in my career. So I have something to do with it. Seasonally, year over year, these numbers are still very strong for sales overall, and pending sales. If you look at Mike Simonson from Altos Research's data, we're still in a good spot. But what about employment? I mean, you can't really have a real recession unless you have job loss recession, right? That is one of the three mandates the Fed's looking at. Are we going to see next Friday, not this Friday, even though it's the first Friday of the month, the the Bureau of Labor Statistics November jobs report is being pushed to next Friday, the 8th of December. So we'll see if there's a 4% unemployment. Something I forgot to mention is the SOM rule that's out there, and I kind of looked it up and saw something about it. I think the lady's name is like Veronica SOM or something like that. There's some stuff out there about this rule. I guess I lost it, can't find it. Anyway, it is basically if there is like 3 months rolling average of increasing unemployment rate, that those are somewhat of a good recession indicator. But one thing that was interesting when I saw her speak on CNBC on this clip that no one really mentioned, it's talking about the SOM rule, is that as unemployment increases, it tends to gain momentum and snowball and feed on itself. And so that's one of the parts of that SOM indicator is that, if we go from 3.6 to 3.8 to 3.9 to 4% unemployment, that it's kind of a momentum thing that doesn't really slow down, until maybe the Fed makes some corrective actions and loosens the liquidity again. And so what about jobs? Well, seasonal jobs, U.S.-based retailers are adding only 573,000 seasonal positions this year, and that's the lowest it's been since 2013. And that's according to Challenger Gray and Christmas. By the way, I got this from an Axios article. Job seekers searching for seasonal work on Indeed were up 33% as of September 30th compared to the same time in 2022. Employer demand for seasonal workers is down 8.2%. So there's a little bit of gap there. 82% of companies reporting Q3 earnings are beating on earnings, but they're missing 61%. Only 61% are beating on revenue. So that means revenue is down. That's the widest gap between earnings, net profit, earnings, and revenue. I say net profit. It's probably really it's EBITDA. But and so that gap being wide, what I'm trying to say there is, yes, companies are still beating on earnings, but they're doing it with less revenue, which means they're also having to cut costs, which means jobs. So again, but here's some good news. Black Friday, $9.8 billion in retail sales, set a record, up 7.5% from last year alone. The momentum started on Thanksgiving Day, by the way, which saw a 5.5% increase online from last year to $5.6 billion. So 80.5% of all online orders use standard shipping. I do the same thing. 13% of people used curbside pickup. So, the anecdotal stories are that some of these department stores are not as busy as last year, but that's because people are going online. Does that mean robots are replacing us, even in retail sales? I mean, there's a trend going on there. Big ticket items like RVs, big recession indicator. RV sales are down. That's recreational vehicles. RV sales are down 16% through September. That follows a sales decline of 18% last year. Falling RV sales in 2 consecutive years have preceded the last 3 recessions. Is the American dream dead? There was a poll that came out from the Wall Street Journal. 36% said it's still alive. If you work hard, you'll get it. 18% it's never been true. 45% is once true, but no longer is. I think lower rates next year will help that. And so do originators in realtors teaching financial literacy at scale, saying that the American dream is alive and well. Let's go. Again, home sales are up year over year. It's pending sales, according to Altos research. So it's come back around. By the way, Latinos, 61% of Latinos believe that they work hard, they could achieve the American dream. Blew out the positivity on that. And I don't think it's a coincidence that the Latino demographic is the largest first-time homebuyer demographic. Another 50 companies in the U.S. went belly up, bankruptcy in October. That brings 561 total this year. That's too shy of all last year, 563. The biggest name was Rite Aid, which is like a CVS type place. Credit is now tighter today than any point since 2009. Goldman Sachs says nearly $2 trillion of corporate debt's coming due next year. There's higher rates. Maybe they can't get refinanced. Do we have walking zombie companies just waiting to fail? Are there be more bankruptcies coming? There's a lot of indicators out there. I'll get into some more of them later this week. The State Coincidence Index, you can look that up in the Federal Reserve in Philly. there's a lot to chew on here, right? By the way, we're going into an election year. Speaking of ups and downs, age and health concerns are contributing to the 118th Congress, the oldest Senate in history. So 7 senators and 31 House members in total have announced they'll be leaving. Roller coaster. Get ready. Have a great week. Cheers. Hey, it's KP coming to you live from Corona, California. 10 o'clock Thursday night. It's almost December. And there's a lot to talk about. We had the personal consumption expenditure report come out today, which is the Fed's favorite inflation gauge. They actually call it the Fed deflator. And I'll talk a little bit about this roller coaster that I talked about in my last video of comments coming from the Fed board and jobless claims and how they're very sticky. And if I can get to it, I had a really cool deep dive. My buddy Trey Waters, we used to work in wholesale at First Magnus pre-crash. This is pre-07 together. He sent me a cool article. We both read Seeking Alpha, and they did a deep dive into the Fed's balance sheet. Did you know the Fed has not paid Treasury a remittance this entire year, and this will be the first full year where that's happened. And the Fed has been reporting losses, but you're not allowed to ask that. If you watch all the press conferences after the Fed meetings, 9 of them, by the way, since the losses have been occurring, not a single question. So we'll get into that. But before we get into that and get into some of the housing news and things that are going on and talking about how the entire narrative will go from, hey, all right, we're not talking about inflation anymore because we got that thing whipped, right? Now we'll be talking about recession. And I've been saying it for a while that the soft landing is over. The only question is, how hard does the landing get from here? But before all that, let me give you a really cool thing I saw, the coolest thing I saw this week. So right here on LinkedIn, on our LinkedIn community, we have our buddy Alec Hansen. He's actually a neighbor of mine. He is the Chief Marketing Officer of Loan Depot. Go check him out. If you don't follow him, he's actually like super brilliant on social media. He had a 100-day challenge. So most people wait until the end of this month and then have a New Year's resolution and they decide to start working out because, you know, we put all these pounds on and all this damn food. God, it's brutal. Well, he just finished a 100-day challenge that he documented online, and he worked out every day and didn't drink alcohol and no bread, and dude lost 52 pounds. So way to go, brother. If you aren't following him, he's a great follow. His content's awesome. He's got the bright side of things, which, yes, our industry has had a rough time. Remember, our industry goes into a recession first, and it's been brutal. And when you have continuing jobless claims, now over 1.9 million, that means the number of initial jobless claims are reported every Thursday. Now, the number that came out today was for Thanksgiving week, which is usually a light, data reporting week, just a short week. We had like 219,000 jobs, initial new claims of being jobless in the week. And that number rotates, right? Those people, they file an unemployment claim, then they go find a job, hopefully. But if they can't find a job, the second data set's called continuing jobless claims. That number just went over 1.9 million. And we haven't seen that number for continuing people claiming to be jobless since the pandemic, when companies were closed. That is a sign it's harder to find a job when you lose a job. And that is a short-term recession indicator. Now, we've had long-term recession indicators like the 10-year, 2-year Treasury inverted yield curve. We've been talking about that for a year, right? Which that's gotten as high as 100 basis points. Now we saw, it get down to about 13 basis points and go back to 50 here just in the last month. And now today we're at about 36 basis points. Remember, we got to watch that 2-year yield, because as that comes down, right, and gets below the yield of the 10-year, that is also a very short-term recession indicator if you're going into recession. So you got long-term indicators, short-term, intermediate-term indicators, and of course short-term. Continuing jobless claims is an intermediate-term indication of a recession. Now, for our business, when a recession does occur, typically that's when the Fed cries uncle and they say, "That's it. I got to cut rates, and we got to put money back into the system and reflate this economy." When that happens, other industries are hurting. There are a lot of people who are unemployed, but our industry takes off almost immediately. And so, we're very interest rate sensitive. And just flat out, we are, right? Doesn't mean we can't grind through this business. Apps are up, by the way. You notice rates have come down. They kind of shifted down this little lower leg level. We've noticed, rates have gotten a little bit better. The 10-year Treasury has come down. And that's before the December 13th Fed meeting, and which could be a pause or the last 25 basis point rate hike, depending on which, theory you go with here. We'll have that certainty on December 13th, 2 weeks from today. But actually, the Fed cut is when rates really come down. And that is when our industry takes off. Immediately, jobs will be needed, and so we'll start to reflate. I read in IMF today, IMF News, I read something from Fitch where they were talking about the sharp increase in credit card rates and the resumption of student loan payments will drive non-mortgage household debt service to historic highs in 2024. So non-mortgage portion of household debt in the coming year will weigh heavily on the economy. Remember, our economy is 70% consumer spending. We have not really had to experience what consumer spending will be like with the most student loans ever in the history of our country, which had a moratorium on payments, now having payment resumptions. That's a new factor that we don't really have historical data when you're going into this part of the cycle for all those payments, boom, being jumped on us with higher interest rates for credit cards, car loans, and everything else. Now, just on a positive side, right? This counterbalance weight up and down roller coaster, or however you want to talk about it. 64% of our households own a home, and if you have a mortgage, you have pretty low debt service. So that's good debt service, and you have equity. So you could take out equity, and you could take out a loan and help pay off your higher cards and loans and whatever. So that's a good thing. And even if the unemployment rate gets to a 4%, remember, next Friday, not tomorrow, not the first, right? Because it was short week with Thanksgiving, and it's the first day of the month tomorrow. Actually, the 8th, next Friday, we'll get the Bureau of Labor Statistics jobs report for the month of November. And we may see a 4% unemployment rate. So we'll start to see the pickup there and that rate going up. And so, obviously, that will shift, again, the narrative back into recession talk. So let me talk about that just a little bit more. So we have the Fed governors like Waller, who's typically hawkish, saying, hey, I think we've done enough. Austin Goolsbee worked for the Obama administration. He's dovish. He's like, hey, man, we got to be careful not to overdo it. This tightening is already going to happen. It's already going to, make things, worse. So we need to stop. And then you got Daley, who's San Francisco Fed governor, saying, well, we're not near our 2% target. And then you got Bostic out of Atlanta, who is coming out and saying, hey, maybe we've done enough. So it's very interesting. Up, down, up, down. They do that all the time. They're trying to confuse us, right? Well, one thing that's not confusing, I referred to in my last video, the Fed's Bank of Philadelphia has its state coincident index. It's an index. If you're below 50, you're in recessionary camp. September, the index fell to 26. In October, it fell to 22. So this is an intermediate sign of a recession. And so, the highly technical stuff, negative swap spreads, strong dollars, yields, all that kind of stuff. Well, dollar's weakening now, intermediate term. We had a spike in GDP. The revised GDP for Q3 went up to 5.2. You may be thinking, wow, the economy is growing. That's a high comp now. So likely the Q4 GDP won't be able to, match that steam, and may come in a little bit lower, maybe even negative. And so, and that's been spurred by a lot of government spending, which is what happens when you need to give your economy a jolt when it's heading into a recession. So, falling industrial production, rising claims, and continuing claims, all craziness. Now, I only have a minute left for my 10-minute video, but the Fed has been reporting quarterly losses, okay? You can go to Seeking Alpha. Thank you, Trey, again. And they're reporting quarterly losses. They just recorded the biggest quarterly loss of $30.8 billion, okay? So they're like $102 billion in losses. And now they're, they can mark to market their treasuries, got like $5.2 billion in treasuries and $2.5 billion in mortgage-backed securities. They don't have to sell it, right? They don't have to market, right? They can just hold to maturity, just like banks are. Because, of course, all those treasuries and securities are underwater and they're not worth bupkis. So they're not going to wipe out their $47 billion in cash that they have because they don't want to mark it down. So they created a new account because they have their own accounting rules, not GAAP, and they just call it a deferred asset remittance to Treasury. So, they'll just pay them later, and they can. They're the bank, the house. Have a great weekend. Cheers.
You've been listening to KP Talks Dollars and Cents, a top-rated show for those who want to learn about the economy and mortgage environment. Tune in each week for more episodes, and please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Kevin Perenio does not render or offer to render personalized investment or tax advice through KP Talks Dollars and Cents. The information provided is for informational purposes only and does not constitute financial, tax, investment, or legal advice. For more info, follow KP Talks Dollars and Cents on all of our social channels.